Are we in here? Yes. Hello. We are live. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today to talk about the Fora waitlist and how to get off it. We'll just wait another minute or so as people are coming in. And while we're waiting, feel free to throw some comments in the chat. We'd love to know where you're calling in from. See if you're somewhere warmer than our freezing
office. Yeah.
And here in New York City.
Yeah, I think while we're kind of waiting, we can give a little bit of background on Fora and where we're located and just like the company. We are based in New York City. We were founded about a year and a half ago.
Yeah, we launched we launched our website in November 2021.
So yeah, almost a little over a year and a half now, which is very exciting. We are all based in New York City. We have an office in Tribeca, and we're a team of about 30 head HQ. And we have a variety of different departments. So we have an in-house booking team, we have a marketing team, we have a finance team, a sales team, a huge engineering and tech team as well. So lots of different teams. We're not your typical traditional host agency in that regard. So that's a little bit about us. Oh, Terry, you're at St. John's in Canada, so not much warmer. Yeah.
We're in Dumbo. We see some other New Yorkers here.
Love it.
Yeah, and so that you know, our advisors, so you guys are on the wait list and you're calling in to learn about how to get off the wait list. Our wait list is quite deep. I think it's about 50,000 people right now. And so that is how it can get off. But our current advisors who are here, so that you know what kind of community you would be joining, they are everywhere. So they are all over the country and actually in 31 countries around the world. Which was a crazy stat to hear. So really a little bit of everyone everywhere, which is part of what makes it a really cool community, because when you're planning a trip for a client, if you haven't been somewhere or you're trying to get the most up-to-date information about something, there's always someone who's been there recently, had a client stay recently, maybe they're located there themselves. So it's fun to be a part of sort of a really growing travel community where people are really serious about learning the tricks of the trade and being the best travel advisor they can be, but also supporting each other in that journey so that you aren't learning kind of in a void or don't have access to real-time information, which we can transmit as much as possible as a headquarters team, but also know the value of having other advisors who are doing the same job that you're doing and doing it somewhere that you are planning to, whether it's San Francisco or Arizona, Florida, DC, all those places that you guys are, you're full of valuable information for other advisors who are also looking for intel about your cities.
I think with that, we can get started. So we'll quickly introduce ourselves. I'm Allie. I'm head of advisor sales. So you may have received some emails from me already. And I joined Fora about 8 months ago. Previously, though, I was actually a travel advisor myself. I still do some of that on the side. So I've been in your shoes. I was poking around, thinking about moving into this space. So I can empathize and sympathize with you all in terms of, all your different questions and curiosity around what it means. And I was just always that go-to person for travel in my community. And it's been really fun to create my own travel business from it. Henley, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, and I'm Henley Vasquez. I'm one of the co-founders of Fora. Evan and Jake are our other two co-founders. And I've spent my entire life as a travel advisor. So I started in this career almost by accident about 15 years ago. And it's really the only thing that I know anything about at this point is random hotel information that stays in my head. So I had to kind of learn on my own when I got started. As I said, I was part of a business that morphed into a travel agency. So I know what it's like to be at the beginning. And a lot of the resources that we provide to our advisors really are based on that experience of trying to figure out all the lingo. What's an IATA number? What does it mean when people say festive? As well as figuring out marketing tools, social media support, everything that makes the job a little more challenging. We try to work with you to make it better. So that all comes from my background. And it is, I think, the best job in the world.
So with that, the focus of what we want to talk to you guys about today and what is the reason for this call really is talking about what does it actually mean to be a travel advisor and why would you be a good person for it? And that's why we have our survey, to understand and better learn about who you are as an individual, but also the job that it entails and the type of personality traits, as most people can probably relate to. Like, there's certain jobs that people are better suited at. And so for us, we want to talk to you about what are the things and qualifications that take to be a travel advisor, because sometimes it's not as obvious as, you know, certain other jobs like being a scientist or being an astronaut.
I
So
don't think there's anything obvious about being an astronaut. That sounds really hard.
Yeah,
but okay.
Yeah. So we have 5 things to quickly consider. We're going to go over this, and then we're actually going to open it up for questions and comments and all of that at the end. So please feel free, as we're going through it, to ask questions while we're doing that. We'll kind of be checking the comments, but we will probably go a little bit over in the end around focusing on what you guys have written. So with that being said, let's begin. So these are kind of just some top line things, and then we're going to dive a little bit deeper into it. So for us, we kind of pulled apart, and I kind of picked Henley's brain a little bit more just because she's been so knowledgeable in the industry and has been doing this for so long. These are the 5 things. So being entrepreneurial, finding your niche, planning your time wisely. Are you already planning travel? And really understanding the economics of travel planning. I think that part where we talk about it, it's really understanding, how do you make money in this business, and does it make sense for you to get involved? So with that, how entrepreneurial are you?
Yeah, so I think entrepreneurial is a big word, and gets thrown around a lot, particularly sort of these days in terms of tech startups and sort of people out there running their own businesses. But what does it really mean to start your own business? Because that's what you'd be doing as a travel advisor. And there's a few traits that I think are important to kind of look at yourself and say, like, am I like this? Because these are the things you're going to need to really be able to launch your own travel business. So being extremely driven, it really is something where you're not just showing up for work every day. You are building your own business. You're reaching out. You need to be able to speak up. So sort of embracing the fact that you're in a sales role where you are going to actually have to go find your customers, get them to book travel through you. You'll be starting off with your own personal network, of course, but even that can be a challenge at times, convincing them that this is the right way to be booking your travel. Being tech savvy and resourceful. So we are in the process of building out tech for an industry that doesn't have a whole lot of it. There is not a need to be a coder in order to be a travel advisor, of course, but you do need to be savvy in terms of being able to learn about how to use your MailChimp account right, how to be in Portal, how to be accessing our community forum so that you're talking to other advisors. And then the flip side of being super motivated is also being patient, because it can take a while. So if you're thinking about turning this into a full-time job, typically people say it takes about 3 years to build enough business to be able to support yourself full-time. I think some people do it faster, some people do it slower. And the point of Fora is really to meet you where you're at. This doesn't have to be a full-time job. However, getting started can require a little bit of patience and lots of curiosity, and really sort of the motivation. Just be a self-starter and get out there. We'll give you the tools, but you have to want this yourself, and have that motivation to go find the clients, plan the trips, and keep them happy.
Awesome. So finding your niche, I think you also can speak a little bit about, especially when you were first starting off.
Yeah, I think it is, you can plan travel for anybody, but when you're thinking about getting started, what's your niche? Like, what's the thing that you feel most passionate about? So what are the experiences you like and dislike? Now, obviously you're not going to say to a potential client, like, oh no, I don't like that, I can't book it for you. But it is helpful when you're trying to find clients to think about, what are the parts of travel? So am I really passionate about family travel? Am I really passionate about adventure travel? What are those styles that you feel comfortable booking? So comfortable advising someone on. Maybe if you have never climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, you might feel a little nervous about planning that trip for somebody. Now you can, and we have the resources to do it. But when you're getting started, really look at what those styles are and what those experiences are. The flip side of that is knowing something about who your clients should be. So not just who you are, but who should you be working with? And really, and we're going to touch on this a little bit more later when we talk about the economics, but figuring out the right budget for you is key. Not all travel is worthwhile travel to plan. And if you are thinking about sort of, my friends, my family, they really spend very little money on travel. It's going to be hard to make a business out of that because this is a commissions-based business. So think about, what is your ideal budget? What would you say I need to be hitting sort of nightly room rates around this in order for it to be worth it? And then how much do you know about hotels and how much are you ready to learn? We will educate you. We have lots of training on everything from how to make your first booking to what to know about every hotel that is fantastic that we love in Florence. But how much do you know already? And we're going to look for that in your survey too. Hotels, I would say a good survey doesn't say, I like Marriott's. It says, I like a specific hotel, or I like this specific place, and showing a breadth of knowledge of, I'm picking 3 different hotels in 3 different places, and being really specific about what makes those special, because that's what's going to make you a good salesperson when you're actually planning trips.
The other thing too that I'll just know, when I first started getting in, especially around hotels and just the curiosity aspect of the industry, is how much are you ready to learn and how much do you want to learn? Because there is such a huge learning curve to it. But even to this day, like a year and a half later, I'm still learning things about hotels. I mean, Henley says it all the time.
Yeah.
She's like, oh my gosh, I just learned about this hotel. And you've been in this industry for 15 years now. So your learning never stops. And as long as you're staying curious and wanting to continue to go down that path, that's something that's also going to be a really big strength for you.
Yeah. And I would say that really is sort of both the good and the bad side of this industry. So if you're someone who always wants something to be new and always wants to be learning, awesome. This never gets boring. If you're someone who is frustrated with sort of a constant flow of information, this could be challenging. And that is where you have to learn how to plan your time wisely. Allie, do you want to talk about this as you're newer into it?
Sure. So for me, I started off as a part-time advisor, you could say, and more of like a side hustle. I was looking to monetize the business that I was already doing for my friends and family. And for me, you do have to invest a little bit of upfront time into doing this. It doesn't happen overnight. And I remember I went through a couple of the trainings and use that as a launching pad. I was attending the office hours that were happening for an hour. I was, doing the research. It does take a little bit of time. And so with all of our advisors, there is a 1-month cohort training, and you should be ready to dedicate that time to engage with it so that you then set yourself up for success. I think what ends up happening is people kind of think like, oh, I'm just going to sign up and then I'm able to just launch and it's going to have an influx of leads and then I'm going to make all this money really quickly. But at the end, like, it actually takes a little bit of time to understand how you make bookings and what is this all like crazy vocabulary and understanding the landscape of the different like suppliers. So that's something to really be reminded and familiarize yourself and understand, like, do I have the time frame to do this? We like to say if you can dedicate about 5 hours a week to this plus, you're in really good shape. The other thing too is to also be ready to be prepared to be in an active community and an active member of a community. We have, like Henley said, a variety of different advisors all over the world. And they're here to lean on each other. And so you need to understand too that you're coming into a place where people are taking this very seriously. And so on top of that, it's also the Fora brand, and our industry also has so many eyeballs on us as well. So understanding that, this isn't just kind of, sometimes what ends up happening is you join something and it's virtual and it's online, and then you're like, oh, is this really tangible? But then what ends up happening is our advisors go on a site visit, or they meet our HQ staff, or they meet other Fora advisors, and they recognize, wow, this is actually real. And I remember the first time I did that, and I actually met Henley in the office, and I was like, oh, wow, I'm like actually part of something, and this is so crazy. And once you start taking it seriously in that regard, it's also like your own personal brand of yourself. And so it definitely changed the way that I viewed myself, but it also changed the way that my network viewed me. And if you're looking for that as well, I think it's a really great opportunity.
Yeah. So, and a lot of you might be on here because of our fourth point, which is, are you already planning travel? So if you've never planned a trip in your life, this might be different. What we see with a lot of our successful advisors, so people like Allie, is that they are people who already are the ones in their network that friends and family are asking for help. So you're the one that your friend is going on a honeymoon industry and going, oh, where do you think I should stay in Italy? Or I want to go to Mexico with my family. What's the best resort that's kid friendly? If you're that person where you're already doing this job, this is going to be the natural progression because you're essentially leaving money on the table when you're not doing it. This makes you a strong contender to be a great advisor because the work is already there. What's important is that then you would think about, who am I already planning travel for? How do I map out that network? And how would I approach them to say, okay, this is no longer just a fun thing we chat about over a glass of wine. This is actually my business now. Let's start doing this together. And then think about, what are you doing to sort of get them engaged at first? We do give you advice on how to build a business where you would be charging trip planning fees for complicated itineraries. If you're getting started, it's a great way to say, hey, how about I do this without a fee? Obviously, you're earning commission off the hotels anyways, so that you can sort of try it out and get people engaged. Referrals are the best way to build your business. So get one client happy, and then they will generally pass on others. So again, are you already doing this? Awesome. You're going to turn this into a business. If the idea of planning a trip and really sort of going into the nitty gritty and figuring things out is not as appealing as just sort of taking pictures of trips, that's a little bit of a different job.
Yeah. Something else I'd also say when I first started off was the mapping out of your network. If you have a really large network, it's actually quite surprising when you map it all out and look at it. You're like, oh, wow, I could hit up this person, or I know this person's part of X startup and they're always traveling, or, oh, my mom's friend is part of a junior league and they're traveling for their sports club, for their soccer team every single month. They probably need help booking their hotels. So things like that, when you can get really creative about how your network and what they're doing, because the other thing is, you don't have to just think about personal travel. There's a variety of other types of travel that you could be tapping into. So thinking creatively in terms of your approach about your business, and then also being and feeling comfortable, which is point one about entrepreneurship, is, are you that self-starter? Are you going to go out and reach out and pick up the phone and call them and say, hey, I know you're doing this, or I know you have your, like, for me, I knew all my friends were getting married. So I called them all and I was like, have you started planning your honeymoon yet? Because I know that I could help you with that. And they loved it. So just thinking kind of creatively about it and being able to feel comfortable about putting yourself out there is a whole nother way that you're going to be super successful.
And the fifth point, the nitty gritty, the economics of travel planning. This is one of the top sort of areas of confusion, I think, that we see with advisors, of not entirely knowing where the money comes from. Like, how do I make money off of this? Because again, you're already planning travel and you're not getting paid. The whole point of this is to plan travel and get paid. So anyone can plan travel, but to make meaningful income, what you're gonna have to focus on is higher end. So remember, this is a commission-based business. So the higher end of the trip, so the more expensive the trip, the more money you will be making off of it, because it's a percentage of anywhere from 10 to 15% of the room rate is where it comes from. So just do the math. So if it's a $200 a night room, it's $20 that you're getting in commission per room night that's being split with your agency, 70-30%. If it is $1,000 a night, that's $100. So that's a lot more. So think about that in terms of the economics. And then also the experiences, the other aspects that drive it. So we've sort of broken these down into some blocks here. I'm going to actually start with the top of the pyramid, because this is the stuff that is going to make you the least money, and yet you should focus on the least at the beginning. Flights. So you've got a client and they want to fly to Miami for the weekend. You ain't making any money off of that. There are ticketing fees involved. If you have booked your own, or if you booked your own flights with a travel agent at some point and see the ticketing fees, well, that's because that agent is not making any money. There's not commission in airlines the same way that there is with hotels. Now, if somebody's flying first class and long haul, yes, that's a little bit different. And we do work with a flights partner to be able to ticket those. But really think about flights and then put it out of your mind. That's not really what you want to be focusing on. It's high complexity, low reward. The other thing is itinerary design. When you're designing out a 3-week itinerary through Italy, and it's guides and spa appointments and restaurant reservations, there's not commission in that stuff. And so we will teach you how to charge trip planning fees, because you do need to charge those fees, because otherwise there's not a whole lot. Now, the middle is tours and transportation, which there is some. The actual sort of itinerary design, with thinking about all that, you need to charge for it. But when you're booking a tour, there are commissionable tour operators and transportation, so that you can earn some commission off of the car that you book from the airport, the tour that they take around the Vatican, if we're sticking with the idea of Italy. But lower ticket price, so lower general pricing. Obviously, your hotel is going to cost more than your tour of the Vatican. Unless it's a very special tour, you're going to make less money off of that. And that is why we have accommodations on the bottom. Now, accommodations can mean a lot of things. It can mean hotel rooms. It can mean cruise ships. It could mean house rentals, but not Airbnbs. That is not commissionable, but more sort of professionally managed villa rentals. It can mean group bookings. It can be that soccer team that you need 10 rooms for 2 nights because they have a soccer tournament. That could actually be at a pretty inexpensive hotel, but when you start to add up all of those room nights and all of those rooms, it starts to become a meaningful commission. But accommodations, really think heads on beds. Where are your clients sleeping at night? That's what you want to focus on because that's where you're going to make the money. What am I leaving out?
No, I think you really nailed it on the head.
Yeah, the heads on beds.
All right. I think we're going to open it up to audience Q&A.
Yeah. And I see one right away about what we were just talking about. Are you getting commission? So if we can throw that one up, Clint asks, are you getting commission on the room rate? What about restaurants, tours, etc.? So yes, so commission is on the room rate. So going back to the example of the hotel, let's say the hotel is a $500 a night hotel. There's typically a 10% commission for an agency that's built into that. If you are an agent working with you have to be with a travel agency and you have access to their license. That means when you book that hotel for your client, there's going to be a 10% commission based on the room rate that then comes in. And then for the restaurants and tours and all of that, there might be some touring does have commission in it, but obviously it's a much lower amount because let's say it's a $150, $200 tour. You're just not going to make as much money off of that. And certainly no commission on booking restaurants. So make sure you're charging that fee.
I think
I like this question.
Yeah, I think some of the questions, one was, what was the best application you received and why? So I am actually the one that goes through all the applications and I read them all. And I read all your answers. So some of the best applications that I've received and why. You don't have, I think for the one is around, what are your top 3 favorite hotels? For me, I love to see uniqueness. I love to see that you have an opinion on certain hotels, but also to understand the level and taste of that hotel too. Like Henlia said, when you think about the economics of it, that's where it's really going to matter. And understanding what type of hotel properties are we working with. And specificity, that's a huge other thing. If you just say a hotel brand, it's really hard to gauge, why do you care about that hotel versus just the generalization of it. And then also when I'm reading it, like, why do you want to be a Fora advisor? Explaining a little bit more around, do you have clients? Are you already doing this type of work? Do you already have trips coming up that you could start planning? That just goes to show too, there's a little bit more engagement and you also have a launching pad to start off on immediately so that when we're putting resources towards you, you can actually be applying everything that you're learning directly to the trip that you're planning for the summer or for the weekend or for whatever. And also just, showing that you have a large network that you can tap into. So those for me are a lot of the top things that I see when I'm pulling applications out.
And I would just say also really professionalism and communication, because this is so much of a job where it is all about communication. So you are talking and emailing with your clients all the time, talking and emailing with hotels all the time. So if we see an application come in that's sort of like not professionally written, grammatically incorrect, spelling errors, somebody who's a little bit careless with their communications, that's probably not going to be somebody who's going to thrive in this kind of environment. This is somebody who's thoughtful, has sort of is a well-written application. That's always going to stand out to us because it is such a part of the job.
I think just kind of going off of that, another question, what are some ways that I can get more comfortable with sales if that's not something I'm good at now? I definitely think that sales is definitely a skill that you can learn. And we go through a lot of that in our training cohort. So that is something to get comfortable with. You need to be obviously comfortable, whether it's speaking on the phone or just feeling comfortable in terms of your knowledge base. Reading is a really great way, honestly, to get comfortable with sales and also just kind of practicing. I mean, practice makes perfect. And there's still to this day where things that I trip up on, or I talk to my client and I'm like, actually, I need to, let me circle back with you, all of that. So there's different like tools and tricks that we have in terms of helping you get really comfortable and best at providing best practices. See, I even mess up.
Yeah. I mean, I think so much of it is just confidence too. And that can feel really scary when you're starting something new. Any kind of new job is really intimidating. And particularly one where you're going to have to be putting yourself out there. It can sound scary, but sales is really just the ability to convince someone that they want to do something that they probably wanted to do anyways. So you're not trying to sell, ice to like, what's the term? I can't even think.
If you can sell ice to an Eskimo.
Is that it?
Yeah,
you don't have to be that way. You really are trying to just find a way to work with your network to help their trips go better than they would have otherwise if you weren't involved. And the more that you learn, the more confident that you feel about that. And that is why we have this cohort-based training. So you're going to start in a group, you're going to go through it with other people who are learning too. It's about having a passion for travel, but then learning how to activate that and turn it into something real. That is a sales job, but the more that you learn about doing it, the more confident you'll feel in presenting yourself.
We have a couple of questions around resubmitting the application. So we're going to talk about this a little bit later because we have a bit more time to answer other questions. But yes, I'd love for everyone who's on this call to please resubmit your application and share with me a little bit more about yourself and what inspires you and what you want to be in terms of a travel advisor.
Yeah, maybe we can talk. I see a question about the technology that we're building. So maybe we can talk a little bit about that. So there's sort of two pillars of our tech that we're trying to pull in to make this job a little bit. Well, there's more than two, really. There's two portals that you're working in. So you're going to log in. If you were through Fora Travel Advisor, you'll log into our agency portal. Within that portal, you have access to all the trainings that have been done. We record all of our trainings, so you can go find something if you're trying to re-up on what best hotels in LA are. And you can also go in and you can see all your bookings. So when you do a booking with a hotel, you're going to forward it to our team. They're going to log it in your portal so that you can come in, search your reservations. You'll get alerts when you have upcoming reservations to make sure you're checking in with your clients and everything's going to go smoothly with that trip. That all lives there. You can also access our community app from there, which is our super busy and very chatty way that our advisors are connecting with each other. And that's the place to go to help other people, share advice, share your wins, vent about your losses, look for questions on something that's related to a trip you're planning. It's really sort of our agent or advisor support area. Additionally, what we do is we preload content into MailChimp for each advisor. So we're going to help you with your marketing. So you don't have to go out and create that content. Our content marketing team does that. Every advisor has a profile. We're optimizing that for SEO as well. So upload lots of content where you are talking about what your expertise is, and then social media engagement, of course. That's something where we're going to train you and we're going to give you tools to actually be able to go and do that so you don't have to figure it all out for yourself. What else am I missing?
Something I think from a theme that I wanted just to touch on of everything that you just mentioned in terms of what we have to offer. As you can see, we've built something very extensive. And that's where for you to understand when you're coming into this, we've created tools and resources and workflows and support for you. And so that is something that we want everyone to be leaning on and using because this industry can be really complicated and confusing. And so we're here to kind of strip it back and like make it very easy and digestible. So when we go back to like who you are as an individual, the self-starter aspect, being patient, being self-motivated, all of these things are really important when you're working with different types of software. Also being very tech savvy is another thing. So understanding, the different types of ways that we work within our community and within our team, but then also leaning on each other. That's something that I just want to touch on too, because it's so important that we continue to work within what we're building for you to make it as easy as possible.
Yeah. I see a question from Lindsay about booking luxury travel if you haven't done that before. And that is really something that we do focus on a lot in terms of helping you understand the differences between brands. So just as a little bit of background, I did not grow up traveling in a luxury travel situation at all. In fact, I barely set foot in hotels as a child or through college. This is really something that I learned on the job. And yes, the right thing is as an advisor to be focusing on that higher end because you're going to make more money doing that. So 4 or 5 star hotels, that's where our partnerships are. That's where you're going to be able to actually give benefits to your clients for booking through you. But we're going to help advise you on how to do that. So some of that is customer service. Like, how are you dealing with like a high touch client? How are you making sure you're doing the job right? But a lot of it is just understanding the differences between the hotels. So we talk about hotels a lot. We have a destination training on a new destination every Friday at 11 a.m. where you can come in and learn about the hotels that we feature and typically are booking the most in a certain destination. We also have office hours throughout the week. So if you're really confused, like, I don't know, I have somebody who wants this kind of hotel in this kind of place and I don't know about it, we can actually live answer those questions for you. And then we do spotlights on suppliers and specific hotels as well, live trainings throughout the week. So you're actually going to start to speak that language a little bit. And I think that's so much of what this is just learning that language of what is the difference between a Four Seasons versus a Rosewood versus a boutique hotel versus a Hoxton. And so learning those brands, becoming fluent in that language of travel. And we're going to bring you into that so that you can actually start speaking sort of more authentically, which also makes the sales job a little bit easier.
Then I think we have one more question around TAP course. Is it desirable to take the TAP course and test before applying to work at Fora? I didn't. And I am a travel advisor. So I think that's, me neither. I think as someone who's very, very new to the industry, what I noticed was there's a lot of different kind of fluff in terms of what the industry has to offer, which is great. There's so many tools and resources. There's all this different types of information. But when I joined Fora, because we have the training cohorts, that was enough for me to understand and really dive deep. The other thing we also didn't mention is we have certified advanced and pro level trainings. So your knowledge and learning doesn't stop after you've been certified. There is so much more to do and learn and build your business. And that's where our advanced training comes in. It's about building your business. It's actually a 2-month course. It's a month online and then a month offline. And there's a ton of different variety of ways we help you build a more like robust portfolio and really dive into like multi-destination itineraries and all of that kind of fun stuff. So it's not a necessary requirement to be applying to work at Fora, but it is something, if that is of interest to you, go ahead and do it.
Yeah, and I would say that too, that you don't need to have training as a travel advisor to become a travel advisor here. That is what we're really going to do. We're going to teach you our way, which we think is the right way. And there's lots of opportunities for continued learning. You just need to have that general travel know-how and sort of willingness to dedicate the time to be serious about it and get yourself started.
So we're almost just shy of time. So I think what we're going to do, we're going to go over the Fora Advisor Plan. So what does it mean to join Fora and how does that look? So currently it is a quarterly plan or an annual plan. It's $79 billed every 3 months, or there's the annual plan of $199 and that locks you in for the full year. And on the far left, these are all the things that you include. We touched on a lot of this as well. But one thing, again, to note is when you are refilling out your survey, there is material and information that will come to you. We also, Henley and I, host monthly Q&As, which is a bit more of a deeper dive of what it means to be a travel advisor. So I highly encourage all of you to join that. I think our next one might be the first week of April. I can't remember either. Or maybe
we're on webinars a lot. You will see
our
these faces really a lot.
March 29th is actually our next one. So next week, 2 weeks. So please also join that because a lot of your questions we also go over on a much deeper level, and it would be great for you to attend those. But these are just a few of the things. So in terms of next steps, and I know we've kind of addressed this before, please refill out the survey. And the last question, how did you hear about Fora? There is a box that says other, and enter the code priority waitlist. That will then allow me to pull you out, and we can I can review your survey at a faster time.
Yes. And so I do see a question that Janelle posted and that I want to address because I do think it's really important. Free and discounted trips are totally a benefit of being in the industry once you're established. So you sort of, when you're getting started, you need to build a book of business and you need to show that you're a legitimate salesperson so that hotels know when you're coming in, that you're not coming in and staying for free and then not actually delivering business. So as we mentioned earlier, when you are becoming a part of this and you're going through these trainings, You're going to go through certified first. You're going to go through advanced second. And then once you've hit certain sales and trainings targets and sort of established yourself really as an agent, that's when you become eligible for supplier events, for joining these familiarization trips with hotels. And they are fantastic for leveling up your business once you get there. But I do think it's really important for everybody to know this is not something where you're joining and then walking into hotels and staying for free. And I can tell you that after 15 years in the business, I still pay for really all of my hotels. So it is, it's a wonderful industry to be in, but it really needs to be something where you're in there to sort of use the knowledge that you have, use the travel that you're doing, turn it into a business, because they definitely aren't handing out free stays all the time. Any other questions about our survey or the pricing? I think we've put it all in there. I think the important thing to know is don't be intimidated by, you should be able to jump this wait list. We do have 50,000 people on it, but put that priority wait list in there so Allie and her team can find you and pull you out of it. If you think you're going to be successful selling travel, you're going to earn back the cost of it right away. I do see questions about additional costs like insurance. No, you are covered under Fora's insurance when you're getting started. So you don't need to have that. It's really, you join this, you start training, you start booking, and that's the way that you get this business going. Anything else we haven't covered?
No, I think we covered it all.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
You took the words out of my mouth. Thank you, everyone, for joining and your questions. I think it just goes to show the thoughtfulness, too, that you're putting in and the seriousness of what you're wanting to do. And it's just been really nice to meet all of you. And
yeah, we hope to see your applications coming in, and see you on March 29th if you have more questions as well.
Please join that.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.